If you're aiming for a big law job, a federal clerkship, in-house at a Fortune 500 company, a honors government attorney, if you want to go into academia, if you long-term want to be a judge, any one of those things, then you probably care about how you perform in law school. Why? Because those jobs notoriously are taking students from the top of their class or otherwise students who perform well in law school. So obviously that begs the question, what is the truth about performing well in law school? Or how can you set yourself up to perform well in law school? Right around this time of year, at the time of this filming, I always get emails every single year. I always get emails. Sephora, I'm disappointed with my 1L first semester law school grades, and now I'm worried big law is out of the picture. Now I'm worried getting a federal clerkship is out of the picture. Now I'm worried whatever it may be is out of the picture, right? Like without a doubt, those are the emails I'm getting from people I've never heard from before who just follow us on social media, sending us those emails. And they're like, can you help me? And there's a couple of things I'm going to talk about with respect to that in this video, because to the best of your ability, you don't want to put yourself in that position. You always need to be proactive when it comes to law school, not reactive, right? So proactive is getting out ahead and learning what you need to do to succeed in law school, because you don't want to be in the position where you go through your entire first semester of 1L and then your grades come out and you're not too happy with it. With that being said, it's not the end of the world. It is not the end of the world, and that is why you're here. That's why you're watching this video. Now, if you are a law school applicant, so let's say you applied to law school for fall 2025, this video is also for you because you are starting law school this fall 2025. So the proactiveness is here for you. So the other kinds of emails I get are from those who I did not work with at all on their applications, and they begin emailing. I'm getting rejections from all these schools that I thought I was a shoe-in for. Even some of my clients, I'm not gonna lie to you, even some of my clients. Sephora, I'm getting rejected from the school that I thought, was a safety for me. I'm getting rejected from XYZ. I'm worried, right? And then that usually results in them saying, should I apply to more schools? Should I apply to more schools? Or, oh my gosh, like, what if I don't get into any, right? Kind of just going down a rabbit hole. And it's normal. It's anxiety inducing, right? The whole application process, the law school process, a lot of it can be stressful and anxiety inducing. So what I'm here to talk about in this video is a couple of different things. First and foremost, we're going to talk about law school performance and what it looks like or what it means to perform well in law school and how to set yourself up to do that, right? So here we have two camps of people. It's best divided into these two camps because this kind of represents, like I said, those buckets of emails that I get and see and hear a lot of, right? So in this first bucket, you have people who get into top law schools and they're excited to go to the top law school. And they're like, okay, I have all these top goals, and so I know I need to perform well. So that's one bucket. Your second bucket is people who don't get into top law schools, and for whatever the reason may be, they don't want to retake the LSAT or they don't want to wait another law school application cycle and redo their application. And so they decide to go anyway. So they're not going to a top law school, right? So those are your two buckets. You have essentially the top law school, and then you have those who are not in the top law school. For purposes of this video, I'm just going to categorize top law school just solely for the purposes of this video. Let me emphasize that as law schools 1 through 50, 50, right? That's what I'm going to categorize as top law schools. And then for other or not non, right, parentheses here, because it's just for ease of reference, for ease of this video, non-top law schools, I'm going to categorize as anything ranked 51 or higher, right? So that's how we're going to categorize these things. Of course, it's an overgeneralization. There are great law schools outside of 50. They're right, not the point. Not the point here. Okay, so you have these two categories, and the reason I'm separating these two categories is because what some people don't understand is even if you are in this bucket over here, right, schools ranked 51 or higher, you can still go to law school and get to your dream goal, right? I have clients who are at law schools ranked in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, who land big law jobs. What's important to understand here when you're in this category over here is that your law school performance probably matters a lot more than this bucket over here, right? And that doesn't mean that this bucket over here, your law school performance doesn't matter. It still matters. So first, let's start off with this top law school bucket. Let's say you're going to a top law school, you got admitted, and you're starting this fall 2025, whatever it may be, or whichever year you're watching this video, you're starting law school in the fall, right? You're going to a top law school. Depending on your goals, you still have to perform well in law school, right? Some of my clients, their goals are academia. That means they want to be a law school professor. Some of my clients, their goals are federal clerkships. That means they want to go clerk for a judge. Some of them even say, hey, I want to clerk for SCOTUS, right? Supreme Court. And so that's a goal. Others of them like have different goals, but essentially what this means is that they have to perform well in law school, even if they are at this top law school, right? And then for certain big law jobs, like if you're talking like, I hate to use such generalizations, but I have to. If you're talking like creme de la creme of big law firms, like let's just say the V50, so the Vault 50, and I think now it's called like Firsthand, whatever, you still have to perform very well, even if you're at a top law school, because they're not only recruiting from top law schools, but they're recruiting people who performed well at their top law schools. And coming from someone who graduated in the top of her class from Georgetown Law and went through the big law interview process and interviewed at majority of the top big law firms, these big law firms are interviewing people who meet certain GPA thresholds, right? Or are in the top of their class, or are performing well, or do hit certain ticks or benchmarks on their resume, right? And of course, again, that's not to say that's the case for every single firm, but it's the case for a lot of them. And so if for some reason one of your goals is, and I never knock anyone's goals, your goals are personal to you and more power to you, I support you for it. But if that is your goal, then even at a top law school, you have to perform well while at that top law school. Don't even get me into academia, right? Because academia not only requires a top law school and top grades, nowadays to get into academia, you also need the federal clerkship. And the federal clerkship is, you need to be tippity top of your class in your law school to land a federal clerkship. I know people at Yale and Harvard who couldn't land federal clerkships or who struggled to land federal clerkships. And that's because those kinds of goals, how you perform in law school, what you do in law school, law review, etc., moot court, those things matter if it is your goal to get those creme de la creme positions, is essentially how I'm gonna call it here, right? Those very prestige-laden positions. So if you're going to a top law school and you know that these are your goals, then I probably don't even need to tell you. You probably already know that how you perform in law school matters, and getting those grades and doing well in law school is going to be important to you. And so the importance is in being proactive, right? That's why I started off with that story, because you don't want to be reactive. Now let's come over here to those who are not at a top law school. There's a couple of things I want to say here. First and foremost, if it is your goal to land big law, to get a federal clerkship, all those things that I mentioned, my first recommendation is usually not to just go to law school, not to just go to any law school. My first recommendation is usually to take another cycle, to wait, to strengthen your application, to strengthen your LSAT score, to write better, to do everything you need to do to have a stronger law school application so that you can get into a top law school. Because no matter what the internet wants to tell you, facts are facts. And the majority of people in big law positions come from top law schools. It's literally a fact. You can go look it up. It is a fact. And I actually gave those numbers on a previous video of mine that will be somewhere up here on the screen, talking about big law and federal clerkships. And does going to a top law school matter is like the title of the video or something along those lines, right? And so that's usually my first recommendation. However, I do understand that for whatever the reasons may be, some people are like, Sephora, I genuinely cannot wait. I genuinely cannot do this outside again, or I just don't want to, or like whatever it may be. So I'm gonna just go, and I need you to help me do well in law school. And I understand that some people are there, and hey, all I can do is recommend. But if you do fall into that camp of you don't want to wait, and you are like, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna do the best I can because I'm okay with the outcome or whatever the outcome is, then that's completely fine by me. And I'm here to tell you that it's not the end of the world, right? You can still get to your jobs. You can still get to your goals. It may take you a little bit longer. It may require more work. It may require more input on your part, but you can certainly still get to your goals. So here, there's a couple of things that you want to be thinking about. Number one, geography is going to play a big factor here. I encourage you to really think significantly about where you want to practice and how you can factor that into the schools that not only you're applying to, but where you ultimately go to law school. And then two is scholarships, of course, because if you're not at a top law school, you're not no one is guaranteed a big law job, first and foremost. But even more so, if you're not at a top law school, it's going to be important to make sure you have scholarship money to offset the cost of law school. So just in case you don't get the job that you want to get post law school, that big law job, whatever it may be, you aren't six figures, multiple six figures in debt, right? So once you've taken that into consideration, your geography and your scholarship, if you're not at this top law school, the next thing you have to realize is that how you perform in law school is going to be so important, right? So when I talk about my clients who are at these schools ranked 50 or higher and doing well, landing big law jobs, getting like RA positions, getting on moot court, all those kinds of things, they prepared for law school. You do not want to go into law school blind. Law school is unlike anything that you have done before. It's not like any job. It's not like a master's program. It's not like any other graduate program. And I usually say that when people ask me this question, it's not that I think law school is difficult, and I actually didn't think it was difficult for me. It's more so like the burdens and the stress that comes with law school, right? And so that is really the truth. It's more so the stress, right? The stress, especially if you are aiming for big law, if you are aiming for federal clerkships, if you do have these big goals that you know how you perform in law school is going to impact those goals, then yeah, that of course it adds stress onto you because you're graded on a curve. And that's why I get those emails, right? Saying like, I feel like, my big law chances are gone and et cetera, et cetera. So yes, how you perform in law school matters. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is prepare the summer before law school so that you know how to create schedules, so that you know how to study for exams, so that you know to go to office hours and what to ask your professors. Essentially prepare before so you're not trying to figure it out during law school. And I'll tell you something. So when I was a 1L, I actually did a law school prep program, and it was the few weeks before law school. And during the program, I didn't see the benefit of I could understand the benefit, but I didn't see the practical benefit of it while I was going through it. Do you know when I realized the benefit of that program? It was after I finished my 1L first semester. Like after the semester was completely done, after I had finished exams, literally after all of that, that's when I said, oh my goodness, like if I had not done that prep program, that semester would not have went how it went. I would not have done as well as I did because I would have literally been struggling to figure things out as I was going along. And that's what a lot of people make the mistake of doing, right? And if you know you have these goals, then don't make that mistake. Prepare in advance before you start law school, especially if you're first generation, especially if you don't have any attorneys in your family, especially if you don't have the people guiding you to tell you what to do and how to do it and how to prepare for law school. You need to make sure you're going through law school prep programs. So some of your schools may offer that and you can apply to be considered for it, but others of your school may not. We at Topping the Curve, we do have a law school success program called Law School Summer Camp. And essentially it's 8 weeks in length where every single week we're meeting to go over prepping you for law school success. But before I get into the details of the law school summer camp, I wanted to talk to you about what it looks like to perform well in law school and how you're actually going to set yourself up to do that. So the first thing, you have to prep in advance, right? And I feel like this is super obvious based on everything I just told you. You have to prep in advance. So most of you guys, your law school will start at the end of August or in early September. Don't wait until the end of August or early September to start preparation, right? So I'll tell you, my clients, when I worked with them, I start usually in May or in June, and we work periodically throughout the summer. And when they started law school, it's the same thing. They were like, Sephora, I it's so funny. I posted about this on my Instagram. They're like, Sephora, it's so crazy. Like I know how to do this, and none of my clients and none of my classmates do. And I'm showing them and I'm helping them. At Sephora, I'm already like outlining, and everyone else is like confused on what to do, right? And that's the point, right? I'm not telling you that you want to brag about being ahead of your classmates, but the point is to go in prepared, right? Especially if you know you need to do well, especially if you know you want to do well, especially if you have these goals, right? So number one is start early, prepare in advance. You don't want to be someone who is regretful or going in and trying to wing the law school success or performing well in law school. Do not try to wing it. It's, again, especially if you have these big goals. If you don't have these big goals, by all means, this video is not for you. But if you do have these big goals, right, you probably know that you don't need to be winging it. The second thing is you have to have a study schedule. Oh my gosh, guys, this is a non-negotiable. A study schedule is carefully tuned to you personally, right? So for example, my study schedule, it had my wake up time. And I think, well, everyone's schedule, let me do it this way. Everyone's schedule should have the following things: your wake up time. What time are you getting up in the morning? Your commute. How long is it taking you to commute? Your classes. How long are your classes and what are those classes? How many credit hours are those classes? When you're going to the gym or when you're working out or whatever your workout looks like, your lunch hour or however long you're taking for lunch, your commute hour, if you're going out, when you're hanging out with friends, and when you're going to bed, and your study time, right? So literally 10 things your schedule has to have. Now, when you're curating your schedule should be, in terms of study time, it should be mapped out to your credit hours, right? So you need to put in a certain number of study time per credit hour. And that's how you're keeping track to make sure that you are studying the right amount of hours per credit hour. And then when you're divvying that up throughout the week, you say, okay, this is when I'm going to be outlining. This is when I'm going to be reading. This is how I'm going to be setting up my schedule, right? Because for me personally, I prefer to do most of my readings on the weekend. This is how I'm going to case briefs. This is when I'm going to go to office hours. So guys, literally all of that is included in your schedule, and it needs to be done. Ideally, when you get your schedule from law school, when you get that 1L schedule, that's when it needs to be done. And then you're able to adjust it once, like, I would say the first 2 weeks to a month of law school has gone by. And so you know what you like to do. So I had one schedule that I created before law school started, and then I changed it to a different schedule once I was like, okay, this schedule isn't working for me. Let me change it to something else. The next thing that you have to do that I think a lot of people wouldn't even think about, and actually I wasn't taught this one when I was going through my law school prep course. This is one that I just kind of learned on my own and adapted specifically for topping the curve in our clients, but you have to know how you learn. One of the biggest things that I realized is the reason a lot of people may struggle in law school or may not realize why they're performing poorly or not performing to the best of their ability is because they're trying to adapt to how other people learn. And one thing I realized when I was teaching my clients, and what I realized even when I was going through law school, is sometimes what someone else is doing or how someone else is teaching you something is just not going to work for you. And so you have to be able to adapt that to how you learn. And so that's so important. It's knowing how you learn and adapting your study methods and study schedules to how you learn. So if you're an auditory learner, you're not going to learn or study in the same way that I, Sephora, learn, because I'm not an auditory learner, right? I'm a writer, right? I'm a reading and writing. That's how I learn. And so what I'm teaching you guys in my law school summer camp is how to learn or how to create your own study schedule, how to do well in law school based on how you learn specifically. So it's not like there's this one strategy to success. There's multiple different strategies to success. And what I always tell everyone is, it's so hard to kind of sit here and give you one. And this is why this is more of a high level. I mean, I'm going in pretty deep actually in this video. So, but whenever people like ask me kind of like a generalized question, and this is to an extent why, I always caveat these general questions with saying like, it's going to depend on your personal circumstance. And this is exactly what I mean, because you ask me like what I did to succeed, that may not work for you. Okay. And so one thing that I encourage everyone to do is understand how you learn and adapt your study methods, adapt your exam preparation, adapt your schedule building to how you learn. And that's what I'm teaching to my clients in law school summer camp, is how to do these things, how to adapt it to their specific learning methods. The next thing that you have to do that is an absolute non-negotiable is going to office hours. I don't care if you don't like your professor. I don't care if you're not social. I don't care if you're not outgoing. Guys, go to office hours, right? I literally give my clients a list of questions to ask their professors if they don't have any questions, because going to office hours gives you insight into not only your professor and what they want, but it also helps you build a relationship with your professor, which for things like federal clerkships, for things like sometimes even like in-house jobs, or sometimes like honors government attorney jobs, or whatever it may be, having that network and building that network is going to be so important, because your professors are your professors, but your professors are also extremely accomplished attorneys, right? Because like, think about it. If you want to go into academia, you have to probably go to a top law school. You have to do all these things that your professors already did. Your professors are extremely accomplished, and a lot of them will have connections. A lot of them will just have great information. So even outside of the schools, the academic piece, there's other reasons, personal and career-wise, that you should want to connect with them. But going back to the academic piece, your professors are the ones writing your exam. Why wouldn't you want to talk to them? When I tell you, I learned so much from my professors about what they wanted on their exam, just from going to their office hours and asking them. I remember to this day, one of my professors said, if you do this, you will not get an A. Literally just told me that in office hours. And it was just because I went. Right. So go to office hours. Your professors are there to help you. And a lot of people too, when they email us saying like they're disappointed with their grades, and I'm asking them, or I'm making suggestions on what they do. That's one of the things I'm telling people when they email me is, did you go to professors' office hours? Did you learn? Did you go and ask them, hey, can you go over my exam with me? Because your professors, they may not say yes, but you never know, right? And I always say closed mouths don't get fed. So it doesn't hurt to ask, and going to professors' office hours is going to be super important. The next thing that's very important for you to do and understand is that you need outlines. Guys, you need outlines. You need outlines. This is so important. And it's not even that you have to get the creme de la creme or the tippity top outline from the best person in the class. An outline helps you in a myriad of ways. Number one, it gives you an overview of the semester. It gives you an overview of what you're going to be learning in class. If you miss something, that information will probably be in that outline. It helps give you a guide as you're taking notes. It helps you study. There's so many benefits to outlines, and I always recommend getting outlines from upperclassmen and using those outlines from the moment you start law school. You may not know what to do with them when you first start. If you join my summer camp, you will. But those outlines are going to be very, very helpful for you as you proceed forward in your law school journey. Number 6, you have to prepare for exams earlier. When I see people saying, I'm preparing for exams in Thanksgiving, huh? Like, why? Why? Right? Don't try to cram all of your exam prep in Thanksgiving. Exam prep is something that happens throughout the entire semester. From the moment you step foot in your first class, it's exam prep time. Especially if you are in the majority of law schools where majority of your grade is based on one final exam, and maybe like you have like a 15% midterm, but most is one final exam. You are always prepping for that final exam. Right? And so you have to start that prep earlier. That looks like taking practice exams. That looks like the proper study methods. That, again, looks like outlining. You are always prepping towards the exam. Some people will kind of skew and focus a lot on the wrong things that just don't matter. What matters is the law school exams. And so I know like you're going to hear cold calling, and we'll cover that in the law school summer camp. But ultimately, that's not what's important. You're not graded on your cold calls, right? That's not what's important. And there is a way to kind of delineate, okay, how do I prep for class prep, which is like the cold call, the case brief, versus how do I prep for the exam. There is a way to go through and delineate that and make sure that you are keeping your eyes on the prize, as I like to say, so that you're ready to perform well on the exam come exam time. Finally, guys, I'm going to lump this into one, which is networking, interviewing, and applying to jobs. You cannot forget these 3 things, right? And actually, I'll add in a 4th, which is extracurricular. So I'm talking like law review. I'm talking moot court. I'm talking like barristers council, which for some of your law schools will house moot court. That's what I'm talking about, right? Other organizations like BOLSA, LOSA, MOSA, whatever, all those different things. You can't forget those things because you're going to be bombarded with a lot of that information your 1L year. And while you can't hold positions your 1L first semester, you will be able to do so your 1L second semester. And maybe fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, some of those things are going to matter depending on your career goals. So whether you like it or not, if you want to land a federal clerkship, judges like to see law review on your resume. Again, coming from someone who did 2 federal clerkship and has spoken to a lot of judges and a lot of law clerks, federal judges like law review on your resume, as well as great grades. I mean, I feel like that just goes without saying. You need top grades, like I said at the beginning of this, if landing a federal clerkship is your goal, right? And again, if academia is the goal, then your law review is also going to look good. Moot court also looks good. Judges like those things, right? So when I'm talking extracurriculars, I think there's a fine balance, or you have to find the balance between doing ones you're genuinely interested in and doing ones that are going to benefit you in your career. Finding the balance between that and going after those while, of course, maintaining your grades. Guys, I haven't even talked about clinics. I haven't even talked about practicums. I haven't even talked about doing all of those things and how you fit all of those things in, because again, those make a difference and they make for a very, very fruitful law school experience. Like, I did a clinic, I did an externship with the Department of Justice, and it made my experience great. But you're also figuring out and making sure you understand how to balance these things with getting your grades, with performing well in law school. So whether you are at a top law school or going to a top law school, or not at a top law school or not going to a top law school, your law school grades are going to be important. And you want to keep that in mind, especially in light of, or for those of you who have these goals that I've been talking about throughout this video. And that's why I have law school summer camp. So the law school summer camp is something I do for all of my law school applicant clients who are then going to be starting law school. So for, as the time of this recording, it's going to be for fall 2025 applicants who are starting law school this fall 2025. It is 8 weeks in length. It is super in depth and it is super fun. So we are meeting every Monday evening and Friday evening, and we are going over, I have a full list, so let me read it to you. Number one, mastering law school schedules is week 1. Week 2 is case briefing and outlining like a pro. Week 3 is networking for career success. Week 4 is raising law school grades. Week 5 is exam preparation. Week 6 is landing the 1L job. Week 7 is preparing for interviews. Week 8 is extracurriculars and organizations, right? So literally everything I just covered in this video, that's what we're covering in our law school success summer camp, or law school summer camp for short, or LSS. Okay, guys, so in this summer camp, I'm taking probably between 10 and 15 people, because I do keep it tight so that we can go through everything and I make sure everyone understands how to succeed in law school. For more details on this law school summer camp, you can just click the link in the description box below to purchase your ticket to be a part of this summer camp. We kick off in June. Like I said, 10 to 15 people, so it will just close once we are full. So don't wait. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. I'm so excited. I hope to see you in the law school summer camp. And that's it. Don't forget to follow us on our Topping the Curve social media, which is Law School Coaching. It's Topping the Curve everywhere. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you watch this next video on how I landed my big law jobs and learning more about my law school application cycle. See you on my next one. Bye.